I know you didn't go to school for coaching bodybuilders. And when I say coaching bodybuilders, like lots of coaches online, and not to take anything away from them at all, but they coach normal people. Like I could find someone on Instagram to coach me. And, I'm sure there's varying degrees of quality. But David mainly works with bodybuilders. Like it was mainly you do what, female bodybuilders, or is that, I was looking on your stories and I'm like, are all of these clients? I'm like, damn, these are all people that are like really advanced in bodybuilding. So that was one of the things that impressed me about David, is that he's not just teaching Joe Schmo like me that, is on TRT and, wants to get bigger. You're training people that are trying to go pro and are pro.
Yeah, but I do have like normal lifestyle clients, like in their mid 40s or 50s, within the FDA realms. I need to know the FDA realms. I was just talking with my doctor today. Oh, you'll like this. They're this mind-blowing podcast moment. The FDA is cracking down on the peptide market hard. Like they're about to shut it all down. Like they'll have maybe a few of the peptides around. Like I know like some of the secretologs that will probably stick around that are FDA approved already. I think they're shutting down almost the entire peptide market. I was just talking with my doctor about it today. But either way, so yeah, the FDA world is definitely a world I need to know. But I'm like, hey man, I was like, yeah, ask your doctor. If they're open-minded doctor and they actually understand the science behind it, they will prescribe you certain things. You can get prescribed Anadrol in the US from a medical doctor, as long as you can fit within the realms of how they can prescribe it, and as long as they understand the research behind it. And this guy was a very advanced doctor. Like I knew by what he said. I think he was actually a professor at like Baylor College or something like that. And I'm like, all right, he's gonna be cool. I was like, ask for X, Y, and Z. And then this guy's like, I want to put on 20 pounds. So I want to go from 180 pounds, which he was working with a trainer, but he didn't really like his results. He was like, I got somewhere, but he's like, I really want to be 200 pounds with basically no percentage of fat gain, right? And he was like 10% body fat. This dude's lean. He used to run triathlons or Ironmans. So he trained people for Ironmans. This dude's crazy.
Wow.
Like, all right, let's see what we can do. I was like, ask for X, Y, and Z. And it's very, very low dose of everything within FDA realm and everything. And sure enough, like I just updated his diet and stuff like that. You'll like this. 4 weeks. He went from 180 pounds. He's currently 197 pounds. 0 fat gain.
Really?
0 fat gain.
That's crazy. I mean, if you want to put out his protocol, it'd be interesting to hear, but I can totally understand if you don't.
I may put it out there. Maybe for another topic of discussion.
You'll have to subscribe to our podcast and subscribe to YouTube to hear that. How about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it'll be for another time for sure, because I thought it was very, very cool. But you take someone that's extremely disciplined, and I can do pretty much whatever I want to with you. Why? Because diet and training alone, I already optimized for you, right? So you can go so far with just TRT, or not even TRT, and just diet and training alone will progress you so much further. And just in honor of John Meadows, I'm going to bring him up. And he wouldn't ever cuss, but it was essentially the saying, like, if you're on steroids, it's kind of like throwing shit against a wall, something will stick. Well, he was adamant on, but how do you do it? If you do it the right way and you focus on training. If you focus on training, you focus on dieting, how far can you go?
Yeah.
I guarantee you need a lot less drugs to go a lot further. And it's very true. So we're very keen on putting out a healthy message where you don't need to go heavy on androgenic steroids, period.
Yeah, that's, I've hypothetically run 500 before. And I mean, I see why people, I mean, what's the best way to say this? People, they'll start off, they get to a certain point, and then they're not making, for your first 20 pounds gain, you have to work and that much harder to get those next 20 pounds and then 10 pounds. And a lot of people will just, instead of just accepting that there is going to be a slowdown once you hit a certain point in muscle, they just try to blast more and more gear, to try to, when they go from 160 to 80, they want to go that exact same speed from 180 to 200 and 200 to 220. So that's when, we were talking about guys that are taking 3 grams a week, and then they're throwing 750 mgs of tren in there, and it gets to be crazy. It's almost like building up a tolerance to drugs. The first time that someone takes, I don't know, Adderall, 10 milligrams might be crazy, but then 10 milligrams isn't doing it as much. So now you're at 20, now you're at 30, now you're at, 90 milligrams per day of Adderall, and your heart's like, yo, what the, so it's similar to that. Who's, well, I'll let you comment on that. I was going to ask you about your client. I can't remember his name, but big dude. I think you were telling me the guy that has really sick insertions. I don't remember his name offhand.
So there's two of them. I just posted both of them. One of them is going to be top 2 in the world. I want to say number 1 in the world because I'm coaching him. He is he's top 5 most genetically blessed athlete in bodybuilding history, period. Don't care who you are. His name's Keon Pearson. He has the craziest genetics of all time. Like in my eyes, like he's one step below Ronnie Coleman because he's not going to ever be 300 plus pounds. But
he's not as tall as Ronnie, or he just doesn't want to get to that level.
He never wants to get to that level. He cares about his health. I've been monitoring his health for years now, and that's the biggest thing is monitoring health. Yeah. And he is about 5'5", 5'6", and right now he's 210 pounds, 8 weeks out from the Olympia.
He's 5'6" or 5'5", 5'6". I'm 200. I was 212 pounds this morning, and I'm 6 foot. He's 6 inches shorter than me, and he's the same weight. But he's got no body fat either. That's crazy.
Yeah. He's probably sitting actually sub 10% body fat right now, like a true sub, probably close to like 9% or so. And for instance, like I'm 5'8" now, like keep in mind, I'm just chilling, but I'm 215 pounds and my body fat percentage is probably around 14%. But I mean, I have a few inches on him and but this is where I'm really comfortable. Like I'm really comfortable around like the 220 marker, 225 marker. I've been there for years.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting that you're talking about like taking more drugs to get bigger and stuff like that. Once you pass a natural threshold, which by the way is 218 pounds naturally. So once you pass a natural threshold, you become reliant on drugs to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And people get so caught up in that. But here's the thing, even if you stayed on like testosterone replacement dosages, after you got that size, you're probably not going to lose that size. Testosterone has myostatin inhibiting properties. Yeah. There is, and even creatine. No one talks about creatine. Everyone's like, oh, steroids. Yeah, creatine has myostatin inhibiting properties. Creatine is amazing. It's even good for your brain. And people just like don't talk about it. They don't talk about the natural things that are so great for you. L-carnitine, right? L-carnitine is synergistic with growth hormone.
That's crazy. There's lots of good stuff. One interesting one, I want to dive too deep into it because we are at about 50 minutes, is YK11 is an experimental drug. Very little research on it. People suspect that it lowers myostatin, but there's never been studies on it. And what I did want to touch on, we were talking about the carnitine. I want to talk about the Cardarine. Okay, yeah, that was a pretty awkward segue into that, but my brain's a little cooked. But we were talking before we started about Cardarine. I was telling David, like, I've theoretically taken it before. Is that even a thing? Anyway, but I've never felt anything like it. I mean, I got on the treadmill, and I'm not a huge cardio guy. You can see from my YouTube channel. And David, we both have YouTube channels. So check out the link below. David puts out some really good content. Like, he just needs more followers. Like, there's going to be a tipping point where your channel just goes from like 500 to like 15,000. But we were talking about Cardarine, and I was on the treadmill, and I've just never felt anything like that. Like, I know I'm supposed to be gasping for breath. I know I'm supposed to, be breathing super heavy, but you're not. It's a very surreal feeling. What are your thoughts on Cardarine?
So, in theory, no, I took it.
I've taken it too. I mean, whatever. We don't. I'm not going to play that charade. I've taken it before.
So unfortunately, the studies are a little bit scary. But I did want to take it. I have seen like a lot of good human relative experience with it, but we'll get kind of jump into the studies and stuff like that and why it's a little contradicting. It's true. Like, there's nothing like it. I've never experienced anything like it. I mean, you're talking about ephedrine to bronchodilate, clenbuterol to bronchodilate, albuterol, all these other drugs that are great for opening up the lungs and they're actually performance enhancers, right? But Cardarine, you don't feel like it's in your system. You just go. I was doing the time when I tried it, I was probably doing an hour plus of cardio for a prep one time, and God knows what my calories were at that moment. They were probably at like 50 grams of carbs, and I started at probably like 1,000 grams of carbs. No joke.
Yeah.
That's how deep I get.
So you should be like dead. You should be like dragging ass, feeling horrible, and you're probably sitting on the treadmill. Have you ever seen that video of that guy that runs super fast on the treadmill? The ones that are like a little bowl, and he's going like 20 miles an hour. You're probably like that on 50 grams of carbs.
Dude, it was, yeah, I just kept going, like, because in theory, so I started my protocol was just to theorize, like, did it actually work well? 5 milligrams, which is below what people are going to recommend, but it's 5 milligrams. And in theory, on paper, I should have a 10% aerobic capacity increase. I did an extra 10%, didn't feel like I did an extra 10%. Like I did 10% more workload in that period of time without feeling it. Like I actually felt less exhausted. I'm like, okay, interesting. Then after a week, I was like, all right, let's try 10 milligrams. 10 milligrams. Probably got an extra 5% workload. So it was a total of a 15 to 20% extra workload total attached onto it. And I'm like, okay, like that's kind of crazy. Let's go to 15. And I pegged it at 15. I just want to see. And I only did it for a few days. Again, it increased. And I can't tell you I've experienced anything like it ever. I only did it once.
Weird. It's like, you can when you do a lot of cardio, you get that like, and you don't really feel that. You're breathing just as much, but you don't feel it. And you don't feel like your heart's beating out of your chest. It's just like, I can just run more. And it's super weird. And, imagine, so there's a lot of situations going on right now in the United States. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, but imagine, and I'm not suggesting that we give everyone Cardarine, but imagine you get all these unhealthy people and you get them on something, let's say Cardarine was 100% proven safe, and give it to them. How much better would that be for the world and for our country? You're getting people doing cardio and exercising than other things. But anyway, I don't want to dive into that, but Cardarine, the studies, very controversial. I think they should do more research on it. But the studies, they've only done a few of them, and they're all on rats.
Yeah. So the issue was they did a few studies on it. It was all on rats and never passed the toxicity test with rats with the issue. So the whole point to this was preventing heart disease. That's a whole key to Cardarine. And it turned out that they were giving it rats that were prone to heart disease or already had heart disease, something like that. Because does
it mess with your left ventricle? Is that what it does? It's a PPAR agonist or something like that? I think it is.
I don't remember off the top of my head. All that I know is 100% of the rats in every single trial died. Now, I want everyone to know before we sound like we're crazy people for taking this, because I'm never going to probably take it again because of what the studies lead to, and it's never going to be legalized ever. They superdose it in a toxicity test. And they do that with SARMs, and SARMs are having issues passing toxicity tests as well. The only one that's getting semi-close and may potentially be legalized, which I don't think it's ever going to, is Austrian, because people are doing their own human research on it. And that's the only reason why we know that people are dropping dead from it. We've also seen Cardarine in humans improve blood levels, like improve blood work. Yes, I'm kind of with Peter. I would love to have them to actually do legitimate research on it in a real experiment, but because it can't pass the toxicity test of a rat, it'll never make it. They'll never do it.
Well, what's also interesting is that this study gave them, and it's been debated about the actual dosage because they're doing like milligram per kilogram, and then it's on from what I saw, it looked like it was about 40 milligrams per day for these rats. But that was also for 2 to 3 years, and that's also they're like Sprague Dawley rats or Windsor rats or some shit like that. But they're from what I read is that they're pretty prone to getting cancer in the first place, and they only live 2 to 3 years on average in general. And then they gave them 40 milligrams a day for like their entire life, and they died of cancer. So that's why it's an interesting study, because it seems kind of like a flawed study. It's like if you take 9 people that are prone to tripping and you put a bunch of bananas and shit on the floor and they fall, like, is it because of the bananas? Is it because they're clumsy ass people? But I mean, also, like I said, they're taking it for their entire life. So is some researcher out there with a bottle of, Cardarine, taking it for 30 days to get cut, or 5 days a week when they train cardio? Is that, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot, it's a different usage, I guess.
So you do want rats that are obviously prone to heart disease, right? Because you want to make sure that it's going to prevent it.
True,
but they were dying from heart disease. It was speeding up heart disease in them, and that was the issue behind it. So it was doing the opposite of what they wanted the drug to. It wasn't even a drug. It is a drug. It is a drug, but the opposite of what they wanted the drug to do in the original intentions. Or
GW 501 516, and then there's GW, what is it, 0746, which is a variant of Cardarine. It's like Rad 150, Rad or 140. They tweak one little molecule. It was like how they got the legal weed, where they take it and tweak one molecule, and then the government would figure out about it, and then they would ban that one, and then they would tweak another molecule.
People are doing that with Molly also. Did you know about that?
They're doing that with MDMA as well. I did.
Yeah, they were doing it with MDMA, and that's how they were getting pulled into court, and there were hardly any pure sources left anymore, and then they had to re-federally ban it. Then had to re-federally ban it over and over again.
Yeah. So they, I tried. I'm not a big marijuana smoker. I can't even remember the last time I smoked. But one day, for whatever reason, I got a hair up my ass that I wanted to smoke. But I didn't know anyone that I could get it from, and I didn't really feel like looking for it. But I knew they had this spice, the K2, whatever they called it. It wasn't that. It was past that point. But went to the place, bought a little blue and orange pipe, and I bought. It was when they had them in the packages, and they were all colorful, and I guess wow, okay. But anyway, so my thought on how this stuff would work is, I figured it would be way more mellow than weed, because I was like, it's legal. It can't really get you that high. And I remember that my mom was going to come over 2 or 3 hours later. So I put one bowl in there and I take a hit, and I was ripped out of my mind. I went and looked in the mirror, and my eyes were the most red I've ever seen them. And I was just like, this is crazy. I am way too high. And I was like, my mom is coming over at some point to bring me something. She can't see me like this. I mean, I think I was 20-ish, but still, you don't want to be blazed out of your mind in front of your mom. So anyway, my mom never did come over. She bailed for something, and I was good. But I was just amazed at how high I got off that, just because they took one little molecule to make it legal that I could buy it in the store. Wild.
Yeah.
It's chemistry.
I
saw a documentary. We should probably wrap up here in a minute. But there was a guy that's just basically what he does, is he tweaks different the psychedelics, and he's taken a whole bunch of different stuff, but he tweaks them. He's like a chemist to try to see if he can make ones that will help mankind. They're doing research on ketamine for PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? We'll talk about psychedelics in the next one. So subscribe here, whatever podcast you're on, whatever app we're on all the big ones. Subscribe, check out David's YouTube channel. We also talked about the Morphogen. What was it? The REM and the Prime?
REM, Prime, and Calm. Those are the 3 best bang for your buck supplements literally made.
Awesome. I think I'm going to check out, I think the REM one. I'm wondering if I get a Too Much Test podcast discount, but we'll have to talk about that offline. But next time we'll talk about psychedelics. Sam is going to be here. We also may talk to a special guest who's on a certain National Geographic documentary with another famous Instagram person who you probably know. So subscribe and check us out. David, do you have any last words?
No, I look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being part of the Too Much Test podcast. Tell your friends, click like, subscribe, all the good stuff that people say on YouTube. We'll see you next time.